You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
You know that feeling when you are just trying to order a flat white
Oh, yeah. You know exactly where this is going.
and you are completely paralyzed,
Yeah.
just standing there staring because the cafe menu has the most atrocious typography and kerning you have ever seen in your life.
Absolutely. The spaces between the letters are just actively hostile.
Hostile is the perfect word for it. I am standing there holding up the Q, just staring at the gap between the A and the V in the word avocado.
Right. And suddenly you are analyzing the negative space instead of actually ordering your food. It is a very specific kind of torture for anyone who actually cares about visual hierarchy.
Exactly. I mean, you completely forget why you walked in. But you know it is exactly that kind of odd obsession with the details, that intersection of pure design and everyday utility that brings us to what we are going to unpack.
That's my line.
Whether you are a seasoned creative professional or someone prepping for a major strategy meeting, or just insanely curious about where technology is taking us, that drive to understand how things are built is what Vocal Technologist is all about.
It really is.
Our mission is to explore the intersection of automated tools and the changing expectations of creative professionals. And of course, the hardware that powers it all. We have a massive stack of information to get into, so let us jump right in.
I am ready when you are. The shifts happening right across the board are massive, and they really force us to rethink how we work from the ground up.
Speaking of the tools we use to order that coffee, or design the menu for that matter, let us look at the foundation of all this creative work. The hardware.
The physical gear.
Right. Apple has made a very deliberate and strategic push into budget-friendly hardware. We are talking about the MacBook Neo.
The Neo.
Yeah, it sits at a $599 price point, which is frankly staggering for an Apple laptop.
It's incredibly aggressive pricing.
It features the A18 Pro chip derived straight from the iPhone and a 13-inch display, and it is squarely targeting students and budget buyers. But I have to ask you, an iPhone chip in a laptop.
Yeah.
Does not that just make it an oversized phone with a keyboard?
Look, it is a fair question. But that is where the silicon architecture gets really fascinating.
Yay.
What we are seeing is the complete blurring of lines between mobile and desktop processing.
Right.
Putting an A18 Pro chip in a laptop chassis fundamentally changes the entry-level creative experience purely because of the thermal envelope.
The thermal envelope, meaning how hot it gets.
Exactly. In a phone, that chip has to throttle down quickly so it does not burn your hand. But in a laptop, it has room to breathe. It can run at peak performance for much longer.
Ah, I see.
So you no longer need a high-end $5,000 machine to run sophisticated software. This completely democratizes access to professional-grade power.
So it is about removing that initial barrier to entry for young creatives, and it does not stop at the laptop either. We also have the iPhone 17e, which is also starting at $599.
Right, the entry-level phone.
Yeah. It packs the A19 chip and MagSafe charging and the C1X modem. Let us pause there for a second. The C1X modem.
Yeah, the modem is the secret weapon there.
Explain that to me like I am 5, because it just sounds like alphabet soup. Why should a designer care about a modem?
Think of the C1X modem as a massive, ultra-fast pipe for your data.
Okay.
For a creative professional, this means that rendering a massive file in the cloud feels exactly the same as rendering it locally on your device.
Because the connection is just that seamless.
Spot on. When the connectivity is that fast and stable, your phone is not just a screen anymore. It becomes a direct portal to unlimited server-side processing power.
That makes heaps of sense, and we see this capability extending everywhere. There is the iPad Air M4 upgrade boasting up to 30% faster performance and 12 GB of unified memory. It really feels like the floor for base-level computing power has just been raised significantly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is all about ubiquitous capability. When a $599 phone or tablet has the processing overhead to handle intense multimodal tasks, the bottleneck is no longer the hardware.
Right, the hardware is sorted.
Exactly. The bottleneck becomes the software and ultimately the user's imagination.
Here is where it gets incredibly practical for the software side of things. The iOS 26 preview app is bringing Mac-level PDF and image management directly to the iPhone.
Oh, this is huge.
If you have ever been on a crowded train commute trying to sign a document or review a design mock-up on your phone, it is usually a complete nightmare.
Pinching and zooming on clunky file viewers.
Exactly, just
Definitely.
constantly misclicking.
Right. It is a massive quality of life improvement. You now have a dedicated space to view and edit and sign and annotate seamlessly. It basically turns the phone from a consumption device into a much more robust administrative tool.
For sure. And while Apple is pushing the hardware floor upwards, Google is making massive strides in their creative ecosystem. We really need to explore the Nano Banana 2 upgrade for Gemini.
Yeah, the rendering improvements there are wild.
This update delivers faster and sharper images with much stronger text rendering and layout accuracy. Now, anyone who has tried to get an automated tool to spell a word correctly on a poster
Oh, it is painful.
knows it usually outputs something that looks like an alien language. Why has text rendering been such a holy grail to fix?
It is because generative image models historically did not understand letters at all. They only understood shapes.
Just visual patterns.
Exactly. They would try to draw what they thought text looked like based on patterns, rather than actually spelling a word. Fixing this text rendering issue bridges a massive gap. It takes it from a novelty image generator to a viable graphic design utility.
And what stands out to me is Google's built-in markup tool for Gemini. You can literally highlight parts of an AI-generated image and request targeted edits directly inside the chat.
Which saves so much time.
It really does. You do not need to export it to an external editor and manually mask it out or re-import it. You just say, make the specific car red, and it does it right there.
This raises a brilliant point about workflow friction. When you remove the need to context switch between different applications, the iteration cycle becomes almost instantaneous. You stay in the creative flow state for much longer.
And it is not just visual arts either. Producer AI has joined Google Labs. It uses Gemini and Lyria 3 to give musicians natural language control over instrument creation and tempo.
It is wild what they're doing with audio.
You can literally ask it to generate a specific drum beat or change the mood of a track using plain English. But again, let us unpack the tech behind this. What exactly is Lyria 3 bringing to the table here?
Lyria 3 is Google's dedicated music generation model. What is special about it is that it understands musical structure, melody and rhythm and instrumentation, not just raw audio waveforms.
So it understands the theory.
Spot on. Music production has traditionally required a deep understanding of very complex software interfaces, digital audio workstations with hundreds of tracks and effects. By introducing natural language control via Lyria 3, Producer AI is making that blank canvas much less intimidating.
Okay, so the tools are getting exponentially more powerful and accessible. But what does this all mean for the people actually wielding these tools? Let us talk about the evolving role of the designer.
This is the big existential question right now.
It is. There is a lot of anxiety out there, but a really compelling perspective is the concept that product designers are not being replaced by automation, but rather being sorted.
That sorting concept is absolutely crucial. If the machine can generate 50 variations of a landing page in 3 seconds, your job is no longer creating user interfaces from scratch.
Right. You are not pushing the pixels.
Exactly. Your job is curating those automated outputs. The real competitive advantage is now strong design judgment. And judgment is built by understanding context and evaluating trade-offs and deeply knowing user behavior.
It is the difference between knowing how to draw a button and knowing why the button should be there in the first place.
Or if the user even needs a button at all.
Brilliant point. This brings us to Brad Frost's concept of real-time UI. The idea here is that interfaces are generated instantly during conversations.
Yeah, this is a fascinating shift.
It makes the design process far more democratic. You are literally talking a design into existence with your product managers and engineers. But I have to play devil's advocate here. Does not that just turn us all into prompt monkeys?
That is the exact friction we need to look at. It sounds incredibly liberating on paper, but true design is highly visual and spatial and nonlinear and exploratory.
You have to see the whole board.
Right. You need to see all the pieces laid out on a massive canvas to understand how they interact. Generative chat interfaces, on the other hand, are strictly sequential and output-driven. You ask for a thing, and it gives you a thing in a linear feed.
It is a complete echo chamber. You can easily get trapped in a conversational loop where you are just accepting whatever polished output the chat gives you without actually exploring different spatial layouts or challenging the core problem.
Precisely. It can completely conflict with traditional design thinking if you are not careful. And this is exactly why soft skills will define design careers moving forward.
Because the hard skills are automated.
Spot on. As basic execution becomes commoditized, a designer's true value lies in being a consultative partner. You have to be able to clearly articulate what makes a design good versus mediocre to stakeholders who might just be mesmerized by how fast the automated tool generated a shiny mock-up.
You have to be the voice of reason in the room. And that brings up the idea of the full stack or comb-shaped content designer. We used to talk about T-shaped people, where you have a broad understanding across the top and one deep area of expertise. Why is comb-shaped the new survival strategy?
I reckon the comb-shaped metaphor is brilliant because it acknowledges that one deep skill is just not enough anymore. You
Right.
still have that broad horizontal understanding of the entire product lifecycle, but instead of one vertical pillar, you have multiple deep specialisms.
So you are deep in a few areas.
Exactly. Maybe you're world-class at user research and systems architecture and content strategy. It makes you highly adaptable and undeniably valuable because you can connect dots that isolated specialists just cannot see.
Let us build on that idea of architecture.
Yeah.
As execution speeds up, the underlying systems actually become the primary bottleneck.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have ever opened a shared design file and spent 10 minutes just trying to find the right toggle for a button state, you know exactly how painful this is.
Yeah.
We really need to talk about Figma and configuration collapse.
Oh, this is a massive pain point for so many teams.
Basically,
Figma components with excessive properties create a fragile, scrollable mess.
what a nightmare.
It is. You have a single button component with 50 different toggle switches for state and size and icon visibility and hover effects. It becomes completely impossible to manage and terrifying to update.
It is a classic case of adding features until the system just breaks under its own weight. The shift towards native Figma slots and leaner component APIs is the necessary correction here. It relies on creative composition rather than endless switches.
Exactly.
You give designers the building blocks and the spaces to put them, rather than trying to pre-configure every possible permutation.
It is about trusting the designer's composition skills rather than trying to automate every possible edge case within the component itself.
And speaking of Figma, here is where it gets really interesting regarding their broader strategy. Let us look at Figma's orchestration bet. They have partnered with Anthropic for a feature called Code to Canvas using the MCP protocol. Okay, pause. MCP protocol. Break that down for us.
MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. Think of it as a universal translator between artificial intelligence models and your local tools.
Okay.
It allows developers and automated coding agents to push rendered functioning interfaces directly back into the Figma canvas.
So they are positioning Figma as a dense orchestration node. They are creating defensibility through routing density rather than just feature velocity. Let us unpack that distinction because it feels absolutely vital to understanding the business of design software.
Feature velocity is just building new tools fast. Anyone can copy a feature eventually.
Right.
But routing density means your platform is the central hub where all the different disciplines meet.
It is the town square.
Spot on. If the developers and the automated coding agents and the product managers and the designers are all routing their work and their communication through Figma, then Figma becomes the indispensable nervous system of the project. That is an incredibly deep and sticky mode.
But there is a massive danger when we start mixing these automated systems with our strict design rules. We need to get into the dangers of exposing design systems directly to large language models. When you do this, these models often just fabricate design token values. They lose context entirely.
And that results in interfaces that look slightly off. It is the uncanny valley of product design.
Right.
Large language models are essentially highly sophisticated prediction engines. If they do not have strict boundaries, they'll just guess. And when they guess a hex code or a pixel spacing value, they might give you a red that is just one shade too bright or a padding that is 2 pixels too wide.
Which ruins the consistency.
Exactly. It introduces inconsistencies that subconsciously erode the user's trust in the brand's visual identity.
It is like wearing a counterfeit designer shirt. You might not be able to articulate why, but your brain knows something is wrong. So what is the solution here? You have to restructure design systems into LLM-readable spec files. You need a closed token layer and automated auditing to prevent these models from guessing design values.
Spot on. You basically have to put up very strict digital guardrails so the model can only choose from an approved, hard-coded list of design tokens. You are no longer just documenting guidelines for human developers. You are writing strict legal contracts for algorithmic agents to follow.
Let us shift the focus to the broader creative culture because all of these technological shifts and this relentless speed is having a profound impact on how the industry actually feels. There is a strong sentiment right now that the creative industry feels broken due to massive corporatization and relentless cost-cutting.
It is a very real frustration. When large holding companies prioritize profit margins over craft, the working conditions just deteriorate, the timelines get compressed, and the work itself often becomes incredibly safe and generic and uninspired.
But what is so inspiring is how this exact dissatisfaction is fueling a creator-led renaissance of independent agencies.
Yes, I love seeing this.
People are walking away from the massive corporate structures to build small, highly focused studios where they actually have control over the output and the culture.
It is a classic pendulum swing. When the centralization becomes too stifling, the top-tier talent decentralizes.
Yeah.
These independent agencies can be more nimble and more daring, and honestly, the people running them are often just much happier.
And that leads perfectly into the philosophy behind the joy of building slow. There was a brilliant example from Not Boring Software. They made a deliberate choice to trade rapid scaling for lasting success. They build utility apps like calculators and weather apps that actually make users feel something.
That is profound. The prevailing tech industry script is entirely about hypergrowth. It is about capturing the largest possible market share at all costs, usually by making the product as addictive or as frictionless as possible.
Grow at all costs.
Right. Choosing to build slowly and sustainably, to focus on the emotional resonance of a calculator app through beautiful animations or game engine physics, is a radical act of rebellion. It prioritizes genuine craft and long-term user satisfaction over short-term engagement metrics.
It really is a rebellious act. And it requires a certain level of maturity to step off that hamster wheel, which brings us to the wisdom curve. We have this fascinating perspective from a 70-year-old consultant looking back at the evolution of a career. It tracks the journey from pure craft to systems thinking.
This is one of my absolute favorite concepts.
Yeah.
It references the psychological shift from fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence.
Right.
Fluid intelligence is your raw processing speed, your ability to learn the newest software overnight, and your capacity to solve novel problems quickly. This naturally peaks when you are younger.
But crystallized intelligence is your accumulated knowledge and your pattern recognition and your deep experience. When you are young, you rely on speed, but as you progress, the goal is to grow from an innovator into a mentor. Your value comes from your wisdom and your mindset and your ability to see the interconnected systems rather than just how fast you can push pixels.
It is an incredibly comforting thought for anyone worrying about keeping up with the endless, exhausting cycle of new software updates. Your deep institutional knowledge and your ability to guide others eventually become your most valuable and irreplaceable assets.
Let us touch on some major industry moves that highlight where all this is heading. First, the Getty rebrand. They have unveiled a punchy geometric G motif that references the travertine architecture of the Getty Center itself.
It is gorgeous work.
It is a fantastic example of a flexible visual identity. Instead of a complex, fussy logo, they have distilled their heritage down to a bold, adaptable symbol that anchors everything to their core mission of global art access.
It is a masterclass in modern branding. It works beautifully across massive physical banners on a building and scales down perfectly to a tiny social media avatar seamlessly.
Then there is Canva. They are not playing around at all. They have made aggressive acquisitions of Affinity and Calvary and Mango AI. They are very clearly positioning themselves as a serious, all-in-one alternative to Adobe's dominance in the Creative Suite market.
It is a fascinating and very aggressive strategy. They started by owning the amateur and quick execution space, making design accessible to absolutely everyone. Now they are buying up highly respected, professional-grade tools to build a comprehensive suite.
Taking the fight directly to them.
Exactly. It is a very deliberate move upmarket to challenge the established giant on their own turf.
And finally, on the darker side of all this amazing generative technology, we have FanLock. This is a creator-founded platform charging $49 a month to identify and root out AI-generated deepfakes on platforms like Telegram.
This highlights the absolute necessity of defensive technology. As the tools to generate synthetic media become incredibly cheap and completely flawless, protecting digital likenesses and combating unauthorized content becomes a daily exhausting battle for creators.
It is a full-time job.
It really is. It is a crucial service in an ecosystem where visual authenticity is constantly under threat.
It really is the Wild West out there sometimes. We have covered an enormous amount of ground, from budget-friendly Apple Silicon and Google's multimodal workflows to the existential shifts in design culture, and of course the necessity of strong guardrails for design systems and the joy of just slowing down and building things well.
We have looked deeply at how the tools are evolving, but more importantly, how the people using them have to evolve. The shift from pure execution to curation and strategic judgment and mentorship is the overarching theme we just keep coming back to.
Absolutely. And that brings me to a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. We have talked a lot about curation replacing creation, but there is a looming risk of what we might call digital atrophy.
Digital atrophy.
Yeah. If automated systems are handling all the tedious pixel pushing and the rote coding and the foundational layout work, do we eventually lose the muscle memory of how things are actually built? If a massive system breaks down in 10 years, will there be anyone left who remembers how to lay the digital bricks from scratch? Or will we only know how to talk to the machines that used to lay them for us? It is a fascinating tension between convenience and capability.
That is a slightly terrifying but entirely necessary question to ponder. It really makes you appreciate the underlying craft.
It sure does. Do not let those fundamental skills fade entirely, even as you embrace the new tools. Thank you so much for joining us on Vocal Technologist. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to keep exploring the edges of design and strategy and technology with us, hit that subscribe button. Keep creating, and we will catch you on the next one.
Spoken Tech for your ears.